Hey everybody, it's good to see you. It's Carrie Donegan. I got this sort of weird fuzz thing going on in the background, but we're gonna deal with it just the way it is. I am so glad you're here. Welcome to Radical Age Reversal. Again, my name is Carrie Donegan, and we are in this really cool book, Eat to Beat
Hey
Your
everybody,
Diet.
it's good to see you. It's Carrie Donegan. I got this sort of weird fuzz thing going.
Feedback. Okay, we're gonna get rid of that. It is a Monday, people. How are you feeling about your Monday? All right. Welcome to the Win-Win Women audience. I'm Carrie Donegan, and it is so good to see all of you here, our YouTube audience and our Win-Win Women audience. Today, our topic comes from the book Eat to Beat Your Diet by Dr. William Li. He's certainly becoming one of my favorite people in the world because he's just so smart and he is able to share all this information with us. And my job and my goal is to break this down for you so you can actually apply it in your life. So we are on page 19 today talking about body fat and chronic illness. So I have to say, I lived and I do live with people that have chronic illnesses. I'm sure that you know people. If you don't, you yourself live with someone with a chronic disease. And this can be anything from allergies, eczema, asthma, people who have cancer, of course, all your autoimmune disorders, whether you have some kind of brain dysfunction like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's disease, and dementia, or a younger person who develops some type of spectrum disorder, autism, all of those things are considered chronic conditions that can be managed perhaps by science, my sinuses now, by science, but not necessarily cured. And so the question that we raised today is, does your diet have anything to do with it? How about the composition of your body, especially fat, what that looks like? We learned about two different types of fat in the last couple of episodes. We learned about visceral fat and we learned about adipose fat. Adipose fat is the kind that you can squeeze, and visceral fat is the stuff that's tucked inside your body that is surrounding your organs and potentially can actually choke them off, causing lots and lots of problems. You want your visceral fat to be somewhere between it wanted to be under 12. That's actually one of my biggest goals, although I struggle between body image and body wellness and good fat and bad fat. And maybe other people out there do too. If that's something that, is confusing to you or you struggle with or you focus on and you want to change your view, right? From appearance to health goals, I think that's a wise decision to make. It can be a hard thing to change, but it definitely is going to make your longevity and your health span a lot more solid. Put in a comment section if that's something you struggle with. I would love to hear from you about that. But you may want to get a smart scale because a smart scale is a very inexpensive way to test your visceral fat. It'll also give you your percentage of body fat. It gives you your BMI, it gives you your weight. So, like, weight doesn't necessarily indicate anything. Like, you can actually be skinny fat and you can be fat skinny. And so, you can also be someone who weighs a lot more than you'd like to, but you have a lot of great muscle on your body, and muscle weighs more than fat. So there's a lot that goes into this equation. So don't just land on the number. It's really important that you see a fuller picture. So if you or someone you know has a chronic illness, we're going to talk about what fat has to do with it. And so, interestingly enough, he says on page 19 that you can enlist as fat as your ally to boost your health defenses. And I think that's really, really interesting. He said, at the bottom line is that when it comes to body fat, you can't trust appearances, which is sort of how I introduced today's episode. The bulging under the chin, around the torso, over the waistline, and around the thighs is obvious. But slender people can also have unhealthy amounts of body fat packed inside their thin frames. I just found out that a really dear friend of mine, his visceral fat is 9. Now, I'm curious because, male versus female, mine is 3. Um, and I certainly have enough body fat on my body for sure. I'm working on strength and training right now. I feel like that's better than doing a lot of cardiovascular exercise, although walking is key and I try to get my steps in and I recommend that. And, we're talking postmenopausal, we're talking over 50, whether you're male or female. So there's a lot that goes into, what's the best exercise plan for you. Obviously, if you can sit down with a trainer, that's going to be great because they'll put out a plan for you. So, how do we know? What are the indicators that maybe I'm a thin person who has too much visceral fat? Well, what are your numbers look like? This is like one of the easiest ways. What's your blood pressure? What's your cholesterol? What are your triglycerides? What is your uh, body fat, right? So, how much body fat do you have? This is also going to be a big indicator. Um, High fasting blood glucose. That's another one. You don't want high fasting blood glucose. So, these blood tests are not that expensive. They usually are part of your regular annual physical checkup. So ask for these numbers and get to know your numbers. This is really important. Do this every year. Some people shy away from certain tests. I may be in that category, certainly, but blood tests, you don't have to worry about blood tests. Blood tests are going to be good indicators. They're not going to do any damage to your health while you're getting them done. So go right ahead and feel very confident. Blood testing is a good test for you to have and something that you should be following every year. I'm not a big person on getting on a scale every day or every week. You may want to get a smart scale and jump on it once a month. It's just good to know that, see where your numbers are going or growing or shrinking for that matter. So the most dangerous type of fat is the kind that is crammed into your crevices inside your abdomen, wrapped around your innards like pastry dough, squeezing your organs like a bear hug. This type of fat is called visceral fat. It poses a greater health risk than subcutaneous fat, the jiggly stuff that accumulates visibly beneath the skin. Visceral fat encases your kidneys, intestines, even your heart like a baseball glove. It can infiltrate your breasts if you're a woman and surround the testicles and prostate gland if you're a man. Normal sized people can walk around with visceral fat billowing deep inside them and never know until it is a health disaster. Okay, so we don't want any health disasters, certainly. Our goal on this show is to age in a youthful way, strong way, aging strongly. Okay, so how do we gain health? That is what we want to do. That's our goal. Okay, so I just want you to put that out there somewhere on a vision board every time you sit down to a meal, every time you want to go to sleep, every time you decide that you're going to do an activity. Are you making a good choice? Remember, we used to talk about, are you making a good brain choice when we did 33 days? 30% happier in 33 days, right? So, are you making a good body choice? Are you making a good health choice? Are you going to gain health from this activity? Now, we're going to go down a negative path just a little bit more so we know where the danger lies, not so much to be, immersed in that, but it's important for us to know. So, let's talk about cancer and diabetes because they go hand in hand. You may have heard that diabetes is or Alzheimer's is now considered diabetes 3, which is really interesting that there's a brain sugar connection that we have to keep in mind. So I came up with an equation from this book that I like to remember because it helps me understand the information that he puts forth. So the equation goes like this. Visceral fat produces, cytokines. And the cytokines or the cytokines, depending on how you want to pronounce it, produces inflammation. All right. So those three things, that's all you really need to know scientifically. You don't have to go down the rabbit hole and get a lot of detail. But if I have visceral fat, that's the kind that's the pastry dough that's going to choke off all my good organs. It creates something called cytokines. And those cytokines then produce inflammation. And we want that equation to stop. We want that train to stop. Why? Because it increases your risk of heart disease, stroke, and diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and even cancer. A study out of the Weill Cornell Medical Center and Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York examined breast tissue removed from women having breast reduction surgery and found that the inflammatory fat was present in 35% of breasts of normal sized women. Chronic inflammation from visceral fat raises blood levels of the hormone insulin. Okay, let's go back and think about that for a second. Okay, so visceral fat raises insulin. So you can be skinny and have severe diabetes, which is really kind of counter what we think. We think that fat people get diabetes, but it's not true. This is all about visceral fat, not about the squishy fat. So high blood insulin doubles your risk of dying from cancer compared to people with normal blood insulin levels. So I really, really want you to make sure that you understand how insulin works in your body and how to bring it down. Okay. doTERRA has something called the MetaPower system. And many people want to focus on weight loss, but I want you to focus on health gain. All right. So using the MetaPower system, especially the essential oil blend, it's called MetaPower Essential Oil Blend. I'm going to put the link to it in the comment section so you can look at the oils that are in this blend. Taking this blend internally helps you to manage your insulin levels. All right. So even if you're someone who's super skinny, taking the MetaPower oil is going to help your body produce the right amount of insulin. And remember, when stress goes up, right, when we have a lot of cortisol going up in our body, we also have an insulin spike at the same time. Even if you're not eating anything, stress alone can spike insulin. Now, we can't stay in a super calm state all the time. But would it make sense if you're under a lot of stress for you to incorporate MetaPower Essential Oil Blend at that time? Would it make sense for you to use MetaPower Essential Oil before you eat? If you are already diagnosed with a diabetic condition, would it make sense for you to use the MetaPower oil before a meal or after a meal? Now, some people get postprandial blood pressure changes. That means that after they eat, their blood pressure can go up or their blood pressure can go down. A lot of this has to do with your sensitivity to insulin. So it does make sense to use that MetaPower essential oil in conjunction with all of that, especially before and after you eat. And I think it's a great thing since it's non-habit forming, since it's metabolized fairly quickly, about 2 hours, right? So over the span of time when you're digesting your food, that essential oil is there to modulate the insulin spike. So it's not so, it doesn't stay high too long. Sometimes you need a lot of insulin, right? Sometimes it's okay, but you don't want it to be there for a long period of time. So the essential oils are going to bring it down when it really should be brought down in case your body isn't ready or able or prepared to deal with that. So it doesn't do the damage to your system. So is there anyone out there who's using doTERRA MetaPower essential oil blend on a consistent basis? This is your everyday go-to, whether you're skinny, if you're overweight, if you have high blood pressure, if you are someone who struggles with insulin, if you are looking at your cholesterol, are you looking, what are you understanding that there is this silent, they talk about silent killers, right? You have this silent enemy inside your body, the visceral fat. And do you have a tool to use against that? And I would say my number one go-to is going to be that MetaPower essential oil. Now, you're going to also hear about something called the protein insulin-like growth factor, so IGF-1. I hear about this a lot in like the health world. Too much of this protein can directly spark the growth of cancer cells. All right, so let's boil that down. You have high insulin, which can create this protein. That protein, the presence of that protein can encourage the production of cancer cells. which is what we don't want. And this goes back to what we learned at the beginning in the book, that it encourages all of these vessels, right? This vascular system to feed the fat and to feed the cancer. Cancer needs a bloodline, it needs a way to get its nutrition. We want to cut that off, right? So cut it off in a healthy way. One of the things that you can do, we've talked a lot about different foods in past episodes, so go back and look at those. But I really want you to focus on getting that MetaPower essential oil into your daily meal routine. You can actually put it in a drink, you can put it in a capsule, you can take the soft gels that are already made for you. So there's lots of different ways to do this. So here's a really cool statistic. Ready? I like to kind of wrap us up on a positive note. There was a study, and what it showed that a whopping, and I'm using his word because I love that, a whopping 44% of all cancer deaths could be avoided if people stopped smoking. They reduced alcohol, not stopped it, okay, reduced alcohol use and improved their metabolism by lowering body fat and reducing high blood sugar. Okay, I'm going to go through those again, right? 44% of all cancers could be avoided if people stop smoking, reduced alcohol use, and improve their metabolism by lowering their body fat and reducing high blood sugar. How do you do that? You do that with the MetaPower system. Remember, MetaPower system is not necessarily a weight loss system. It is a metabolic reset, which is something that's going to be hidden and silent, something you're only going to see on those blood tests. And that's what you're looking for, combined with strength training and a healthy diet. We always recommend something along the lines of an Asian or a Mediterranean diet, preferably. That environment is going to produce outcomes that are going to be lower when it comes to chronic disease and cancer. All right, so we're going to stop there. We are now at page 22. I told you it's going to be a slow burn, but I think all this information is really important. So your goal this week is to get yourself educated on the doTERRA MetaPower system, especially when it comes to the essential oil, something that people often forget to use. Those oils are super powerful for resetting some of these metabolic markers that you need to get in line. If you can start that habit this week, firstly, you're going to be set up beautifully for the coming holiday season. Get that habit going. Put it near your coffee machine, put it near your toothbrush, throw it in your lunchbox, leave it in your purse. I have it actually sitting in my car with some capsules. I make my own capsules, but you can buy the ones that are pre-capsulated, the soft gels, that's fine too. But you have to have a visual cue or you're not going to build a healthy habit. Habit stacking is so important. This is an easy one, guys. Our homework this week, super easy. Let me know how it's going. You can also diffuse this essential oil if you really don't want to take it internally. You can also rub it on your abdomen if you prefer that. Sometimes those essential oils can be photosensitive, so just make sure that you're putting the oil somewhere that the sun don't shine, because those citrus oils can get hot really fast in sunlight. All right, if you have any questions, put them in the comment section. I'm delighted that I could spend this time with you. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week in the book, Eat to Beat Your Diet with Dr. William Li.